Hi, everyone. I'm so excited to welcome you to this last panel, but also really sad because it's our last panel. And I have one last guess for where CleftCon is going to be, which is Winslow, Arizona. If you know it, it's mentioned in the Eagles song Take It Easy and also a part of Route 66. So, with that, I'll do a poll in our closing to see where you think it might be. But to get to our panel, I'm so excited. This is a first for CleftCon to talk about this, and I'm so grateful for the panelists who are willing to talk about this topic. And it's in every way we exist, being LGBTQ plus and cleft affected. This is going to be such a great panel. So please welcome Jonathan and our panelists, Reese, Ellie, and Natasha.
Here we go. Well, hello, everybody. Welcome to our panel. And look at the audience, how beautiful they are. Hello, Corinne. I see you. And Serena. I think I see Rocco back there. Anyway, welcome. Welcome. This is a wonderful panel and a wonderful discussion. Earlier, I tried to memorize this, but it didn't happen because my nerves are shot. So I'm just going to read a little bit and then we'll get into a natural flow. But, what does it mean to live at the intersection of queerness and gay identity? This powerful session centers on the voices of us, the LGBTQ plus individuals with clefts, as we share our stories of self-discovery, acceptance, and community. Through open and affirming conversation, we will explore our layered experiences and navigating visibility, belonging, healthcare, identity in the spaces that don't usually make room for all of us, unfortunately. This is a space for celebration, reflection, connection, where everybody's welcome. And I encourage you all to please be mindful that you are part of the conversation. So throw questions in as much as you like. We're here for that. My name is Jonathan. I am a man who happens to be cleft affected and gay, and I am part of this wonderful Smile Train community. I go by the pronouns he, him, and my journey being cleft affected and navigating my gayness started probably when I was 25. And it was like, oh my goodness, I was excited to discover it that I was gay, but then I said, that's just one more thing that makes me different. Oh boy. And they both being cleft affected and being gay, not a choice. But being cleft affected, I didn't have a choice to hide it. So I spent a little time hiding until I got more comfortable. I came out later in life. I was 25, but my life has been unraveling. I'm 56 now. I am fully in love with myself, all parts of me, and I'm really excited to have this conversation with you all. And I wanted to kick it over to Natasha.
Hi, everybody. Sorry about that. I'm Natasha. My pronouns are she, her. I have been involved in with Smile Train for since 2022 on the CCAC and the Young Leadership Circle as well. I was born with a bilateral cleft lip and palate, and I identify as queer or bisexual. I'm also an immigrant, which is an important part of my story and kind of how I came to uh, came to be here and the version of myself I am today. Yeah.
Right on. Welcome, and Reese. How you doing today?
I'm great. How are you, Jonathan? It's nice to see you again. My name is Reese
Yeah.
Hudson. I am a professional ballet dancer, and originally raised in Houston and from the UK. I my pronouns are he him, and I'm very excited to be a part of this conversation.
Excellent. And Ellie, hi.
Hi, everyone. My name is Ellie Mador. I am cleft affected. I was born with a unilateral cleft lip and palate. I live in Brooklyn, New York. I identify as queer. And I work for the New York City Health Department in health policy. And I think this is I want to say my fourth ClefCon. Um, and yeah, I'm really excited to be here. I'm really excited to be with this group and to talk about such an important topic.
Yeah, it really is. It's amazing that we have a platform. So really, thank you, Smile Train, especially in today's climate. It's not as friendly out there in the real world as it could be. But I'm glad that we're here to have our discussion. And I guess to go around to each one of us, or each one, I kind of touched on it, but navigating both your clef identity and your LGBTQ plus identity, how has that been for you over the evolution of you coming out? Natasha?
Yeah, sure. Thank you so much, Jonathan. So like I mentioned before, I am an immigrant. I was born in Spain. My father's from Portugal, so we were living in Spain at the time. And my parents didn't know when I was born that I was going to be born with a bilateral cleft lip and palate. I kept turning my face away from the sonogram, and we didn't have all of those 3D technologies that people have now. So in a lot of ways, from the moment I was born, I felt like a disruption. To my parents' life. And we very quickly, about 6 weeks after I was born, moved back to the US. My mom is American and had family in New York. And so my parents decided, they wanted me to have the best cleft care in the world. So they moved us here to New York. But I think that feeling of, feeling like a disruption and having this thing that was different about me and that was a complication from, you know, the moment I was born always really stuck with me. And as I was sort of coming into my own as a teenager and was very involved in activism in a lot of different ways, I was the president of my school's Gay Straight Alliance, although I thought I was doing that as an ally at the time. I, was had very strong convictions about that, but was I think afraid of, adding another thing, sort of like what you were saying,
Mhm.
Jonathan, before, what felt like, I couldn't hide, that I was born with a cleft. I couldn't, run from the sort of disruption that I had felt I had caused in my family's lives. But I felt like, at least for some point, I could, simplify my life at least a little bit and not think too much about sexuality or not come out. And as I got into college and sort of started to be around more and more queer people who were so unapologetically themselves, and also met some more cleft affected people as well. I was really able to see how those things are, yeah, maybe I was a sort of disruption, and maybe I am sort of a disruption in a lot of people's lives, but maybe that's not such a bad thing.
It's a bad thing at all. Thank you so much. And Reese, how about you? What role has community, online or in person, played in helping you feel seen and accepted?
Thank you, Jonathan. Community is a big thing for me. Being in the arts, it's full of community. And so growing up in Houston, I was really fortunate to have such great, medical care and all of that. And so once my career started taking off and I moved to Boston, I had just recently come out to my parents shortly before, and I didn't get the full support that I thought I maybe would have. And so moving to Boston to join Boston Ballet in 2017, I was able to move there and, you know, be who I wanted to be. None of the other students in my class, dancers in my class, knew who I was. And so I could start fresh. And so, yeah, I think having that chosen family initially when maybe your own biological family isn't able to give you the full support is incredibly helpful. And so, yeah, I mean, my friends don't know me any other way, really. And so, yeah, I, instead of it being a negative thing, it's actually what makes us unique. And it at first maybe felt like, oh, this is another thing to add to the list, but it's to add to the list because I can be myself in another way.
Well, that's beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing. There's another question of how has being clef affected impacted your dating life within the queer community? And I wonder, Ellie, if you wanted to jump on that one.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so a little just background on me, but yeah, similarly to Natasha and Elise, like struggled with just like holding both of these um, identities that can bring some shame because of like how the outside world receives you and just because of like social messages that we get growing up. And so I would say really in my 20s is when I came to accept and be able to talk about like both my cleft and being queer. So I definitely struggled with it. I think I knew I was queer. I knew that I was different from a pretty young age. Like I knew I just felt like I didn't feel like my friends with like liking boys and through puberty. And then, that's I think for any adolescent um with a cleft, whether well, no matter what your um identity, like sexual identity is, gender identity is, it's a struggle to um, maybe approach dating and feel like I was listening to the panel before, but just like, with kids, you might feel like, oh, no one likes me because of how I look. And so I think for me, having that in addition to like feeling like I had this secret that I couldn't talk about, um, with being gay was difficult to go through. And I'm really glad and happy that I found community in both my cleft and my queerness to help me get out of that. And it's still something that I work through, and but it's really important. And so I think for dating, yeah, it definitely has impacted that. It's definitely took me a while to like come out of my shell and just feel like I could feel like I knew how to navigate dating with having a cleft and especially being queer. But yeah, there's light at the end of the tunnel, and I mean I'm still dating. I'm single, but I now it's just like I hold these two things and I'm really proud of them both. And so I think you have to be happy with yourself to be able to like find happiness with someone else too.
Absolutely. I think, and thank you for sharing that because it's so important. And I think, that theme of having a cleft and feeling a bit rejected as we're growing up. And then if your family is not supportive and you have that type of rejection, which a lot of LGBTQ plus people do, it really could set you off on a dark path. And I'm glad that we're all here together to be able to talk today and represent. And I'm just wondering, how is advocacy play a role in any of your worlds right now? Anybody want to share?
Yeah, I can touch on that. Yeah, I'm very passionate about advocacy. I work in health policy, so I'm also really passionate about um just making healthcare accessible and affordable to all who need it. And I think something that I really try to do in my advocacy is to represent both of my identities and all of my identities. And so, I'm really passionate about making sure that people who have craniofacial differences have access to healthcare, and also, and that goes with making sure that people who are queer or trans have access to healthcare too. And I think I approach my advocacy with the sense that uplifting one community uplifts all communities. So that's been really important, and I try to be a voice for like all my identities that I carry when I'm out. It's not one or the other.
Mm-hmm. You wear your cape everywhere you go.
Yeah.
Cool. Natasha, do you want to say something?
I was just going to mention about advocacy. I am a teacher by day. I'm a middle school teacher, so I spend a lot of time around kids who are very insecure with themselves. And I guess want to echo what Ellie's saying, that the more yourself that you are, and the more that you like bring your whole self to your advocacy, the better advocate you will be for everyone. And that's especially true when working with kids who are so perceptive about, like, they see when you're not yourself. They can tell. So
Yeah, that's for sure. And I think, to round it off, here is, what advice would you give to an LGBTQ plus person, adult, youth, who are also cleft affected and struggling? What kind of advice would each one of you share? Anybody?
Jonathan, I think I can take this one to start off with. I think when it comes to advice, just knowing who you are, being confident in yourself, and having a backbone of support, whether it's your chosen family, biological, whatever it is. Don't be afraid to ask questions. Don't be afraid to just lean on others when you need it. I feel like nowadays, especially for those of us in this community, there's a lot of fear going around, and so finding those who can help, you know, you find your inner peace, and really just don't don't let the fear get to you. Um, and so yeah, having your chosen family and being comfortable with that, and not forgetting to ask questions.
Thank you. And we're gonna have to jump into the Q&A now portion of our show. So I'm super excited to see what people have to ask us. So how did that happen? Okay. I'll read it. Anybody could answer. As a gay person, I know that the gay community could be a bit superficial, right on. Have you ever felt that the gay community has not always been supportive because of your cleft? Who wants to answer that one?
Jonathan, I think dating anyway is difficult to begin with, especially now in this world with dating apps and stuff. That I think, it's really easy to get negative comments from people because they're not educated enough about cleft. And so I've definitely had a few comments in the past, whether that's about my cleft, but also in regards to my career in the dance world. Um, like, it's unreal. But I think, being aware that it's a person behind a screen and taking that into account, and that you're stronger, you're stronger.
Yeah, I used to beg people just to get to know me. Please don't just judge me by my looks. And then I did that for a long time, trying to overcompensate for others people's vision of me and trying to fix that. And I said at some point, I'm not going to do that anymore. I love me, and you want to get to know me. I'm pretty freaking awesome. So your loss, buddy. Any other questions? Oh, here's one. What is the most powerful thing you've reclaimed about your identity? Ooh, that's a good one, Isla. Thank you. Tasha or Ellie, want to jump on that one?
Yeah, I can jump on that one. Yeah, I love that question. I think kind of goes back to what I was saying at the beginning about how I always felt like I was a disruption of some sort. And yeah, I think I've just sort of taken that to heart in most of my life and been like, yep, I am sort of a big crazy ball of energy. Came into my parents' life as a sort of whirlwind of my dad like passed out in the delivery room because he was so freaked out because he didn't know what was going on. And we jumped on a plane, and then when I as soon as I got to college, I came out as queer. And now I still, I to this day, I dress up as a Smurf for my students, and I come in as Papa Smurf, and it's like a whole thing. I'm a French teacher, and the Smurfs are French, if you don't know. But so yeah, I've really kind of reclaimed that whole like being this big, loud, like crazy disruption, and that being something that I find joy in, and other people I think can find joy in as well.
That's awesome. Very cool. I love a disruptor. Um, are there any more questions? Oh, here we go. How have you combined your two identities? I know for myself, I've helped a lot of friends recover from gender affirming care, since some of it has to been so familiar to cleft care. Ooh, that's it. That's very, very powerful.
Yeah, I love
And
that.
I wonder, Ellie, if you wanted to mention anything about that.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of touched on it before with like advocacy and just um not
Mhm.
shying away from conversations and not um and just like taking, thinking about the intersection of all of these things and all of these identities. But I think that that's a really incredible example, Alexis, of, showing support to other people who need it. And, I myself haven't done that, but I think that I would love to just like be more there for people who are recovering from any type of surgery. And um, so I think that's really awesome.
Thank you, Ellie. I think we have one more question. What do you want people to walk away understanding about those of us who live at this intersection? Well, I'll just have to say, we're not othered. We all are one. A lot of the world out right now is so divided, and they try to, particularly in the LGBTQ plus community, um, splinter us and say, oh, well, that let them get in trouble or let them get thrown out of there or this and that. But we have to come together and be together and stand strong and have one voice. And I believe that here at CleftCon, this is the perfect platform. We're represented for the first time in all the CleftCons, and through Smile Train's vision, they can see how important it is. We're represented. We're here, and we're queer, and we're not going to live in fear. Um, but I just think it's a beautiful thing to really just stand together. And I hope that you all know that we are full of love and care for everybody, and we're around. If you have any kids, anybody that's questioning, feel free to reach out to me for sure on in media, social media, or whatever. And I want to thank you all for showing up. The three of you were amazing. And
Thank you so
the
much,
audience,
Jonathan.
I see you all too. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you,
Have a great
Jonathan.
night.
Thank you so much.